So with that, let's get started. And first up, we have Don Burke, the Intellipedia doyen from the Central Intelligence Agency.
All right, our goal is 7 minutes a person, so we're going to try to go through this quickly. For me, the key point here is I'm going to have a lot of stuff. Hopefully it'll help you have some ideas for questions when we get to question and answers. This is in no way a comprehensive analysis of collective intelligence. Tom Malone, who's an authoritative expert on collective intelligence, defines it as this. He tried and tried and tried to come up with a better definition, but at the end of the day, it's a group of individuals trying to do something. I often think of it as, doing better together than we can do alone. I'm going to talk tonight, for those of you who have heard about Intellipedia or heard me talk about Intellipedia before, I'm not actually going to talk about any of that. What I'm going to talk about really are some of the lessons learned we've had along the way. What has worked, what hasn't. So current status, we know a lot of these. The most important point I want to make here is from my perspective where I sit, it's still being done by individuals. Individual people are deciding to try to do this, and they are fighting against the currents that are our current way of organizing and working. So when we see all of these big projects, we see all of this press, we have to remember that it's largely an individual behind that that's trying to make it happen. I think it's also important to kind of look at the differences between what we generally think of collective intelligence, that what is happening on the cloud, and that which the government and business bureaucracy works. And this is just a little bit of counterpoint, point and counterpoint, and you can see them here. Basically, business and government is very hierarchical, very proprietary, and very concerned about making sure that the information it has is quote-unquote right. Let alone how much it is right or not is a different story. So we can maybe get to that later in questions and answers. I wanted to really hit this hard because bureaucracies, they are truly a unique animal. They have many characteristics of them that you wouldn't find in nature generally. So all of the incentives, or many of the incentives for promotion, tend to be individual focused. You don't get rewarded or promoted for making someone else look good or making their project work. We have 200 plus years of laws and culture and policy and rules that define how we work. One researcher that I talked with once in a meeting, he equated this to institutional scar tissue because it prevents us from acting. It's us putting stuff around mistakes to try to make sure mistakes don't happen again. So all of this becomes mutually reinforcing. What we have reinforces what we want to be reinforces what we have. And if you haven't already seen it, there's a document on the web from 1944 called the OSS Simple Sabotage Field Manual. And it was developed to help people understand how they could gum up an enemy's war machine. Section 11 in that document talks about what you can do if you get inside another enemy's organization. And what's scary is when you read that, anyone who works in a large organization or bureaucracy is almost certainly going to say, oh my God, that's us. And this is important because it's those characteristics that prevent us from being better at collective intelligence. So we have to find a way to get around some of that. So we can talk about all the negatives. Here are a list of some things that I think would help us be better as government and large organizations at collective intelligence. Getting rid of documents, never allowing anyone to send a document around. If you can't send it as a link, then you shouldn't be sending it. We need to find a way of moving from measuring output, how many widgets did you create, how many reports did you write, how many projects did you run, to more of a reputation-based system that measures, how you fit in that organization, that organism. And then we also need to just reward the act of getting information onto the platform. Right now, our organizations reward expertise through knowledge that you have to call and ask that person. So the more we can get that knowledge just out, the more it will be able to be leveraged today, tomorrow, and 10 years from now. And if we reward the act of just posting it, it will greatly help us. Slates is a mnemonic that was coined by Andrew McAfee of Harvard to refer to the characteristics that make a good Web 2.0 platform. And we need to try to encourage the adoption of that mnemonic. Again, rewarding people that work together as an organism rather than creating new silos of information. One of the challenges we always see is as one social software project gets hold, others eventually start saying, oh, gee, that's really good. I better create my own, because that's how I get my credit, is to create my own environment. And that then divides us, it separates us, and then we lose that power to do collective intelligence. Finally on here is our 3 core principles. If you haven't heard them before, this is what Sean and I use every day when we help people try to understand how to use Intellipedia. Work at the broadest audience you can first. If you can work on the internet, do it. If you can't, try to work on a corporate internet-wide system, always trying to be as broad as you can, replacing existing business processes. If you find yourself emailing, try to blog instead. If you find yourself writing a document, try to use a wiki instead. These are really important for trying to get adoption. And then working topically, not organizationally. Put the knowledge in a place where where it is labeled like you would Google search for it yourself. The problem in organizations is information gets squirreled away in many different places. And my final slide is that this isn't just a nice to have. We need to be better inside our government and inside our organizations, because the thing that is the global brain, the internet, is now far more